works and is a preferred provider in the digital marketing space. I'm going to pass it over to James Holmes, the marketing manager for SyncShow, to talk a bit more about what they offer and introduce our speaker for today.
All right, thank you so much. As you said, my name is James Holmes. I'm the marketing manager here at SyncShow. For those of you who are not familiar with SyncShow, we are an online marketing firm focused on sales growth for manufacturing companies. SyncShow has been a longtime supporter of local manufacturing industry and is proud to partner with Manufacturing Works on today's webinar. SyncShow views the current economic situation as an opportunity for manufacturers unlike any time before. With many of your competitors putting their heads in the sand, there is less noise to break through to increase your visibility and market share. This is not the time to hunker down and survive the storm. This is time for manufacturers to realize their potential for growth and sustainability. If you're looking to be an online sales machine and generate more sales, reach out to us and we'd be happy to schedule a discovery call with you. We are proud to present Jergens as Michelle Belviso as the speaker today. Jergens opened its doors in 1942 and began its journey to grow into one of the world's largest manufacturers of standard tooling components, vices, and other work holding equipment. Additionally, Jergens has been ahead of the curve in developing workforce solutions for many years, as demonstrated by their founding of Tooling U in 2001. Like many local businesses, Jergens had to make some tough staffing decisions during these trying times. The company continues to think creatively and was able to make use of SharedWork Ohio, a voluntary layoff aversion program that allows workers to remain employed and employers to retain trained staff during times of reduced business activity. From Jergens, we welcome Michelle Belviso. Michelle has spent the last 2.5 years as a director of HR. She earned her bachelor's degree from Baldwin Wallace College in Business Administration with an emphasis in HR and management, and spent the last 15 years building her career in human resources. Michelle enjoys implementing new ideas and best practices and helping employees achieve success in the ever-changing, fast-paced aspect of HR. Again, thank you for your time today and enjoy the webinar.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm not sure how many of you may have heard anything about SharedWork Ohio before, or before seeing the information about this webinar. I know pre-COVID times, I had not heard of it, even though it has been around for quite a long time. I think up until recently, it's a program that really hadn't been utilized much. So what is SharedWork Ohio? It is a voluntary layoff avoidance program. It's administered by the state of Ohio. Their hours and wages being reduced while still being employed. The benefit for workers is that they can keep their job and remain employed, and they also can maintain their benefits. From a company standpoint, the benefit is that it allows the employer to be able to save money on payroll costs while they're able to still retain their skilled employees during times where there's reduced business activity. So with typical partial unemployment, if someone were to apply for just partial unemployment on their own, not through shared work, wages have to be reduced by at least 50% for someone to qualify. However, the big difference with shared work is that hours can be reduced anywhere between 10 and 50% for that employee to qualify for unemployment through the program. So once an employer is approved, they have the ability to remain participating in the program for up to 52 weeks. You are not required to have to participate for the full year. At any point, you can choose to opt out, or at any point, you can choose for certain business units to come out of the program. And we'll talk a little more about what a business unit is in a minute. The other benefit right now is that due to the CARES Act, the federal government is currently funding shared work programs. So what that means is that it's not going to impact your individual company's unemployment claims experience. So that's, unlike a normal unemployment claim, the shared work program and your participation in the shared work program will not affect your unemployment experience for the year. So how does this relate to the federal unemployment funds that have been talked about a lot? So in the earlier weeks, so Jergens has been participating in this program since June 28th. So we're about 10 weeks into the program. And in the earlier weeks, employees who were receiving even $1 from unemployment in Ohio qualified for the federal unemployment compensation, that extra $600 a week. That ended on July 25th. So that currently is no longer in play. You may have heard that Ohio has opted into the option to offer federal extended benefits for unemployment, and that's at the level of an additional $300 a week. However, currently it's unclear exactly what criteria someone needs to meet in order to qualify. So at this time, I haven't gotten a final confirmation one way or the other whether shared work participants will be eligible for that $300 or not. That being said, from what I understand, the amount of money that Ohio received is only enough to satisfy about 4 to 5 weeks of unemployment, and it goes retroactive back to August 1. So that time frame is already up. So we'll see how that plays out, and whether or not Congress passes anything additional that goes through the end of the year may or may not impact shared work employees being eligible for additional federal unemployment dollars. One thing to keep in mind too, if you have employees in multiple states, several other states do offer similar shared work type programs. So if this is something you're considering for Ohio and you have other employees outside of Ohio, I would encourage you to look into it for those specific states as well. Each state is slightly different, and it would involve, applying through their program, but Ohio is not the only state to offer this. There are several others that are offering something similar currently. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in pursuing, the first step is to submit your application. An application needs to be submitted for each business unit. So a business unit consists of a group of at least 2 people whose hours are being reduced by the same percentage. So for example, you might have employees in Unit A whose hours are being reduced by 20%. So each week, instead of working 40 hours a week, they're going to be scheduled to work 32 hours a week, and then they'll claim for unemployment for that 8 hours that they're missing. Then you may have another group of employees in Unit B who their hours are going to be reduced by 25%. So rather than working 40 hours a week, they're going to be scheduled to work 30 hours a week. When you're submitting the application, it does need to include a detailed list of all of the employees who are going to be participating. There is an Excel template. I would strongly encourage you to use that. Otherwise, it's a very manual data entry process into the application. But if you use the template, it's a pretty quick upload. Also, only hourly employees can qualify to participate in this program. You can consider taking a salaried employee and converting them to hourly if that's something you choose to do, but they do need to be considered an hourly employee clocking in and out in order to be a shared work program participant. Also, anybody who is considered an intern or a co-op, or anyone who's considered a temporary employee who's not a year-round employee, someone who's maybe seasonal, those types of individuals do not qualify to participate. When you're completing the application, one of the things that is asked is to list the number of people who would have been laid off if shared work isn't approved. So as you're creating your business units, you need to think about within this group of people, if we weren't able to reduce their hours down to from 40 to 32, what would that mean as far as how many employees would we probably have to consider laying off? One lesson that we learned is don't make the setup of business units more complicated than it needs to be. We went into this thinking that we needed flexibility to have each department its own business unit, so that, for example, if warehousing had a busy week and we needed to flex their hours back up to close to 40, that they'd need to be in their own business unit. So we ended up creating 17 business units. So that meant 17 applications. And each week when we upload, we have to upload hours 17 different times. In hindsight, we probably could have only had 3 or 4 because within the business unit, you have the flexibility week to week to indicate a reason as to why that individual maybe needed to work more hours. So person by person, you can indicate that they worked more hours due to business needs. The whole group doesn't have to flex up or flex down together, if that makes sense. The application also includes a question where you have to kind of explain how you're going to be communicating the program. I would strongly encourage you to have a plan for how you're going to communicate it. For us, we had small group meetings where we went through a brief slide presentation, allowed time for Q&A. And then we also offered times where we had like a computer lab set up, and we could assist employees one-on-one when it came to submitting their application. And that was extremely helpful, I think, to our employees. And then also towards the very end of the application, there's a section called Plan Comments. And there's 3 important things that you want to include in that section. The first is an explanation as to why participating in the shared work program is a business necessity. So make the business case for why your application should be approved. If the reason for needing to participate in shared work is due to business decline because of the COVID pandemic, be sure to mention that in the comment section as well. And then that section is also where you're going to want to request the date that you would like your shared work plan to start. Lesson learned at the bottom, I would highly suggest that you choose a planned start date that aligns with the start of your payroll period. It just makes things much easier from an administrative standpoint if you request a start date a couple weeks out in the future and align it with the start of a payroll cycle. And then I've also included a link here for the Shared Work Employer Guide. This is a great resource. It is, I think, a 64-page document, so it's long. But if you're planning to pursue shared work, I would highly recommend reading through it. It includes a lot of helpful information and also has a step-by-step guide to walk you through completing your application. So once you're participating in shared work, what are some of the things that happen from a program administration side of things? I've mentioned this before, but plan to spend some time explaining the program to employees. Creating or having them create their initial submitting their initial claim application can be challenging. Some of the was a challenge and took a little bit of time. And we created some step-by-step guides that were helpful to employees as well. So plan on spending some time helping employees kind of get through getting their claim established. Another
Michelle, I'm sorry, I just wanted to interrupt. I think you just froze for a minute. So if you wouldn't mind just saying your comments again, just on this specific slide, we missed them.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
I was just saying, make sure you plan to spend some time explaining the program. Employees will run into issues with things like needing to reset their PIN. We created step-by-step guides for employees for getting their claim established. But we also found that some employees did kind of need that extra help. So plan to spend some time the week that you roll out the program assisting employees. Another thing with the program is all compensated hours count towards their hours for the week. So for example, last week when we had Labor Day, all of our employees started the week already having 8 hours of holiday pay. So if they were someone who was on a shared work reduced schedule of 32 hours for the week, that meant that between Tuesday and Friday of last week, they could only actually work 24 hours because the 8 hours of holiday was counting towards their total hours for the week. So the same is true for holiday pay, jury duty pay, bereavement, sick pay, any of those types of things all count towards their total hours for the week, even if they're not actually physically hours worked. The other major aspect of program administration is that hours do need to be uploaded weekly. So from the employer standpoint, you upload everyone's hours each week, typically on like a Monday or a Tuesday morning. And then you notify employees that hours have been uploaded, and then they also have to log in weekly to confirm their hours. It's not nearly as complicated of a process as it is to file a typical unemployment claim. Really, all they're doing is confirming that the hours that are listed that the employer submitted are correct. They have to indicate whether they have earned any other income working another job, and then answer like 3 quick questions and file their claim for the week. One thing to keep in mind, and a lesson learned on our part, is we had a process where supervisors only needed to review and approve time cards every 2 weeks according to our payroll cycle. Because we're uploading hours weekly to Shared Work, we had to get supervisors in the habit of reviewing time cards, making changes, and making sure everything for that prior week was accurate each week, not each pay period. Because what you upload to unemployment has to match what you're paying someone. And so making sure that time cards are reviewed timely week to week is important. So that's just something to keep in mind. A couple of other things with program administration. There is also an Excel template that's available for uploading hours weekly. Again, this is super helpful. Otherwise, you're manually entering hours for each individual. When you're uploading hours, you do have to also supply a reason code. So you're indicating whether they worked their hours as scheduled or they did not. And if not, then you enter a code to say why. Reason codes are where you have the flexibility for when someone needs to work more hours due to a business need. You can simply indicate that they worked more hours that week because of business need. If an employee does not work their scheduled hours, so let's say they're out of paid time off and they call off for a day. So they are scheduled to work 32 hours, but they only work 24. So when you upload their hours, you're going to have to indicate the reason code saying that they did not work all available hours, and that will typically lead to their claim for that week being denied. And claims go week to week, so their claim going forward isn't denied, just their claim for that one individual week would be denied because they didn't work all available hours. Another lesson learned is if an employee works more than 36 hours, they will not be eligible for that week because employees do have to have at least a 10% reduction in hours. So we learned quickly that our time clock, when we download hours, it goes by the minute. So somebody maybe had 36.01 hours. 36.01 is more than 36. So that would disqualify them for shared work for the week. And in hindsight, we learned that we should round to the nearest hour before we upload to avoid that 0.01 disqualifying somebody for their benefits for the week. Some additional info and kind of tips based on what we've learned. Keep in mind that while shared work allows for employers to reduce hours by up to 50%, you do still have to maintain benefit eligibility. So if reducing someone's hours by 45% is going to put them to an hours per week that makes them ineligible for benefits, that would become an issue. I do know that some insurance carriers at least were offering some flexibility around this. So if you think that what your plan is for shared work may put people below the minimum hours required for your benefits, you'd want to make sure to have conversations with your benefit carriers ahead of time to see if they could offer you some flexibility in reducing the hours requirement for benefits. Another thing to keep in mind is that in order to be eligible for unemployment, or employees have to be eligible for unemployment in general first. So what that means is they have to meet the eligibility requirement of having worked at least 20 weeks in their base period and having earned at least $269 on average a week in order for them to qualify for unemployment to then allow them to participate in shared work. The other thing that we learned very quickly is from an employer standpoint, we don't have access to be able to see whether employees' weekly claims are being approved or denied. So we had to encourage employees to let us know if they were having issues, and then we could try to jump in and help them solve their issues. But without an employee letting us know that they were having issues with claims being denied, there was no way for us as the employer to be aware of that. We simply see whether they filed for the week or they haven't. You don't see whether their claim was approved or denied. And then as a general estimate, as far as what unemployment benefits someone would receive, they receive 1/2 of their missed wages up to a maximum of $96 per day. So if they were short 8 hours, you would take 8 hours times their hourly rate and divide that in half, and that is the approximate benefit that they would get paid from unemployment for missed wages for that week. And then of course they're receiving normal pay for the other 32 hours that they're working for the employer. Few other things. So federal and state taxes do apply. That was one question that we got frequently from employees. However, unemployment income is exempt from FICA and local taxes. Employees do have the option when they're submitting their initial claim to choose whether they want taxes withheld or not. If they choose not to have taxes withheld though, it is considered taxable income. So they would be expected to pay whatever taxes due come tax filing time. Also, any income received from a second job may impact someone's eligibility for shared work. So from an unemployment standpoint, they look at total hours worked during the week between any and all employers. So someone may have reduced hours through you, working 32 hours a week, but if they're working a second job somewhere else and working 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours there, they're not going to qualify for shared work because between both jobs, they're still working 36 hours or more in total, even if it's through multiple employers. Another thing that we have learned is that it is not unusual for a weekly claim to be paid before a determination is made. So a claim might be paid, and then there's some questions that the employee is being asked to answer, and it's later found that that week's claim is denied. And in that scenario, the employee now owes that money back. Also, probably the biggest tip that I can give is if you decide to move forward with this program, you will have questions. And the best time that we've found to get a hold of someone at SharedWork is right at 8 a.m. when they open. Start calling a couple minutes before 8 and just hit redial. Expect to wait on hold. They are very busy. We were told that previously there were about 80 employers in the state of Ohio participating in this program, and there are now over 1,000. So they're swamped, they're overwhelmed. Expect to wait on hold. Not gonna lie, there's times that I've been on hold for 3 hours. There's also times where I've called and I've gotten a hold of someone within 5 or 10 minutes, so it really just depends. There is an option also to email, but based on my experience, that takes quite some time to get a reply. So my advice, if you have a question or if your employees have questions or issues, is to call and try to get an answer that way. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and open it up for any questions that you have. I did want to also say that if you decide to pursue applying for this, please keep my contact info handy. I would be happy to share any additional resources that might be helpful. I wish that I had learned a lot of these lessons that we know now before applying, so I'm happy to be used as a resource. I'm happy to share some of the things that we've provided to employees, like the FAQ we put together, the slides that we used for our rollout meeting, the step-by-step guides, and things like that.
Thank you, Michelle. That was a lot of content. So everyone's brain hurts, I'm guessing, a little bit if they're anything like me. But we do have some time for some questions. And I will just say it out loud, even though I put it in the chat a couple of times. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, just stick them in the chat and I'll make sure that they get asked. One question that did come in privately, and it was actually a question I had as well. I'm wondering, Michelle, if you've heard from your employees, what the employee experience and reaction has been to this program.
So I would say in general, they're very thankful. I mean, they understood that what this meant was that everyone could keep their job rather than us needing to look at, conducting some layoffs. I think they also appreciated the support that we gave in the one-on-one meetings. I think without that, we have a lot of employees that aren't as computer savvy that would have been pretty frustrated. And in general, claims are processed quickly, payments are made quickly. So typically employees would file their claim on a Tuesday, and by Thursday, they've received their funds via direct deposit. So the fact that that's worked smoothly has been helpful. There are a handful of employees that we have had to help work through various types of issues, but we are at a point now where, knock on wood, we don't have miscellaneous issues popping up each week that we have to help employees with. So, so far.
That's great. I know these types of incidents can be very frustrating for employees sometimes. And so it's great that, I think I'll just reiterate what you said around having that communication plan in place and how you roll it out to employees. It sounds like it went well. We have another question from Joanne. Her question is, if we participate this year up to 52 weeks, do you know if in future years a company would be eligible to apply again?
That's a great question, and I am not sure.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, that might be something that we're able to find out and get an answer out to the attendees. Lucky enough, lucky or unlucky enough, our apprenticeship manager at the state level for our region was repurposed for unemployment claims for the past 5 months, but she's back in her apprentice role, so I can email her and see if she might know the answer and get back to you, Joanne. Any other questions at this time? I don't see any more coming in. You got a couple compliments, Michelle. I don't know if you can see the chat, but very clear and concise presentation. Thank you for your generosity and being willing to meet with individuals who might want to pick your brain a little bit more and learn a little bit more about what you've gone through for this. So we'll end it there. Not seeing any other questions. We'll end the formal presentation at that point. So thank you.